Para proferir a conferência O Cenário Mundial da Indústria da Galvanização Geral, convidamos o engenheiro Frank Goodwin para compor o palco de honra.
Okay, thank you very much.
Frank Goodwin é mestre e doutor em Ciências de Engenharia e de Materiais pelo Instituto de Engenharia de Massachusetts, em Cambridge, e é bacharel em Ciência de Materiais e Engenharia da Universidade de Cornell, em Nova York. É diretor de Tecnologia e Desenvolvimento de Mercado da ISA, International Zinc Association, com sede em Durham. É líder internacional da Organização de Recursos de Zinco desde 1982 e vice-presidente executivo da USRO e ISA desde 2004. Autor de diversas patentes nos Estados Unidos e no exterior, possui mais de 300 publicações técnicas e contribuições sobre a matéria. Com a palavra, o engenheiro Frank Goodwin.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be here to give the opening lecture. We will try in a short time to talk about the world of zinc and general galvanizing. Next slide. Okay, so just the topics we will cover today. A little background about IZA, International Zinc Association, and then the current situation on our zinc statistics, and then the market developments for general galvanizing around the world, and then an example of how zinc is helping to solve some of the world's problems. So the International Zinc Association is 20 years old this year. It has in its members 80% of the Western world zinc production, 60% of the world production, and the difference is really in China, and we are working to engage them more in the association. We have offices or representatives in different cities of the world that you see the cities on this map. We have 43 full members. These are the zinc producing companies. 110 affiliate members, which include the galvanizers, die casters, and other producers of the final zinc products, and then 52 associate members, being the national associations of the users. So the mission of IZA is to support and advance zinc products and markets through research, development, the transfer of technology, and the communication of all the things that make zinc sustainable and essential for life. So now the second part, the statistics, and this gives just a picture of today. You can see we have 4 columns. The first one is with the galvanized sheet production these days in, it is 118 million metric tons of galvanized sheet. The zinc that is used to coat that galvanized sheet is in the next column, 3,677. And then the general galvanizing is the next column, 28,726,000 tons. And then the zinc used to coat that hot dip galvanized product, the after fabrication product, is 1,804,000 tons. So you can see that the largest area of consumption is in Asia. We have seen a very strong growth, of course, in the last few years with China. And then behind that, we have growing very fast behind that. In the last few years, Europe, which has slowed down recently, but which is still growing, and then North America after that. So we see a mix of rapidly growing and more slowly growing areas of the world. The fast growth in what we call the BRIC countries, in Brazil, Russia, India, China, is shown in this slide. You can see the GDP the gross domestic product on the left side, and the zinc consumption on the right side. And although these countries are a smaller portion, perhaps 20% of the world domestic product, they are accounting for more than half of the zinc consumption these days. So we see a big increase in the zinc consumption in these countries as their economies are growing very rapidly. The trends of the last years are shown in this slide. You can see on the right side the zinc consumption, the growth in zinc consumption. The numbers are the 10-year increase. Zinc consumption is very high for China. The red increase, although its GDP increase is not so high as its zinc consumption increase. And then after that we have India, and actually a negative increase in other parts of the world, although their GDPs continue to increase. So this shows the tremendous increase of growth and the potential, and we can speak about Brazil. It's also, of course, growing very rapidly. Turning more specifically now to Latin America, this is the zinc consumption for all uses, and you can see in the recent years the growth of Brazilian consumption. It is the blue on the bottom. It is becoming a larger portion of the Latin American markets for zinc. Others are growing as well, but so much of the growth is in Brazil. There is plenty of room, though, for further growth. If we look at the steel use per person, you can see comparing Brazil on the left, and then Mexico, Argentina, Venezuela, and overall Latin America, the steel use per person is still rather low compared with the European Union and the United States. So there is much room to get the steel consumption per person to the levels of Europe and the USA. And this shows the exact same thing for zinc. We see the zinc consumption per person, and compared with the GDP, the gross product per person, and there's also room for growing in these countries. So we are very optimistic about as the economy grows to the developed level, that we will see both steel and zinc consumption grow further to the levels more like Europe and the USA. So, of course, the message for this is that zinc gives steel its durability. We have a very important message to give to the world for the durability of zinc. Looking at galvanizing general galvanizing and continuous sheet galvanizing are the biggest portion of zinc consumption. Before I showed you the overall numbers, and now we have it by the use. And you can see that the growing is certainly in the galvanizing sectors for general and continuous galvanizing. And so naturally, these are the focus for our market development efforts here in Latin America. If you look at vehicle production in Latin America, you can see a steady growth. We had, of course, a bad time 2 years ago with the crisis of finance, but the increase is still continuing. So the consumption of steel in vehicles we can expect to go further in the future. The zinc industry and the steel industry together support the galvanized auto body partnership, because steel is under the threat of substitution by the light metals, aluminum and magnesium, and also non-metals. And the steel industry has responded by the development of new lightweight steels. Of course, these must be galvanized, and so we work together in this partnership to be sure that the steels for the automobiles can be galvanized with the very high quality that is required by the automotive industry. Now looking at Brazil more specifically, we have seen in recent years a trade balance between import and export, a big importation in the last few years, as you see here, but this is expected to come back to a balance in 2015, a few years from now. And the reason why, first of all, you see during the last years the currency has been rather strong, so this has encouraged the importation. But more specifically, we are seeing, and this also shows the trend of Chinese steel exports comparing Brazil to the USA. And you can see how strong it has been for Brazil and Latin America in the last few years. If we look at the prospects for new capacity, this is the planned investments for sheet galvanizing, and this is a big reason why we have this balance of import and export becoming more normal in the next years. On the very bottom, you see the total continuous galvanizing capacity growth is going to be 2.3 million tons by 2015, the next 3 years. And this will mean additional zinc consumption of 49,000 tons per year. And the demand sectors for sheet galvanizing are shown on the right side with the flat products and also the long products that are continuously galvanized. Automotive being 38%. We expect that to further grow in some countries of Europe and USA, also Asia. The automotive consumption for sheet galvanizing can be 50%, so perhaps this grows more. You see the agribusiness is small, industrial use, and then the civil construction. White goods are the appliances, the refrigerators, and so forth, so the different categories are shown here. So the growth up to 2015, you can see the capacity for flat production. This agrees with the slide of before. The increase by 75% of the flat products capacity and 18% for the long products continuous galvanizing capacity. And the major companies that are growing this capacity, the names are well known to everyone in the industry. The galvanized strip consumption, this again shows the kind of data from before. The consumption has been divided between imports and the national production, and the increase in capacity to the year 2015 will mean there is much more domestic production and not so much import. It will allow for more exports. You see in the bottom slide of this that we have exports increasing to take advantage of different opportunities. But the imports are certainly decreasing as we see. So this will give us a supply and demand balance by 2015, which is still very close to demand. It has been a deficit for the last few years because of the imports, but the capacity should allow the meeting of demand. And if anything, it gives us the possibility for market development to meet the new production. If we look now at the general galvanizers, we see the location of the main general galvanizers in the different Brazilian states. They are, of course, more concentrated to the southeast. Looking more at the southeast, we see the number of galvanizers that are galvanizing more than 3,000 tons each year. And of course, they are located near the main population and industrial centers as we see here. So it is a very well distributed industry through the main population and industrial areas of Brazil. The demand in general, galvanizing, has been strong. We see from the beginning of January 2009 until the estimate for 2010, we see a growth of 30% overall. There have been different annual rates of growing. The segmentation of the Brazilian market has been about the same if you compare 2007 until 2010. However, the growth means that more capacity is needed. The utilization of capacity, the occupation, is 89%. We have a capacity of 600,000 tons per year. Until 2013, we have announced investments of 88,000 tons of capacity. This will be an increase of 15%, and you see the increase shown on the graph. Going further to 2015, we see more investments. So compared with today until 2015, the total capacity increase will be 145,000 tons. This is an increase of 24% over today. And the expected distribution we see down in the lower half, and that is about the same as we have. So our challenge for market development is to look for opportunities to increase these demands. In today's panel discussions, we will be speaking about infrastructure, about oil and gas, and other types of segments, and we will see the opportunities that can change some of this distribution of the demand. Turning now from the statistics to the global programs of IZA, just to give you some idea of how we approach the development of demand in different regions of the world. We have different programs. We'll talk about zinc nutrition a little bit at the end, zinc corrosion protection. Of course, this is what we are interested in today. And of course, we also have programs in die castings, zinc oxide, and brass. We won't speak about those today. But these are in all the major regions of the world that are using zinc. We have programs in all these countries. There's really a difference between the developed world and the developing world. The developed world, the main issues are sustainability. We will hear about that today in our one session. Life cycle cost, where we are fighting the battle against paint. We are always using life cycle cost. Life cycle assessment, which is bringing in the environmental profile of zinc. What we call the leadership in energy efficient design, the LEED, which is the energy efficient buildings, and the increased use of high strength steels, and also galvanized rebar. These are the main focus for the developed world. In the developing world, we have more of a challenge to raise the awareness of the users, of the designers, the specifiers, both in the public and the private sector, to develop the norms, the codes and standards, and to raise the quality and capacity of the local industry. Also, we are trying to develop the galvanized rebar market there. So we have different tools, different ways to help the industry, and they are common to the developed and also the developing world. We have a new interactive training tool that is running on the internet, different tools for life cycle inventory, life cycle assessment, technical information, of course, on the corrosion and the design and the painting of galvanizing. So for the global programs, we have the interactive training tool. We are looking at the new steels that are being developed by the steel industry, and working also with galvanized rebar and a new way of coloring zinc, so you can have zinc in different colors. The training tool was developed in a cooperative program in China. There is a United Nations program called the Common Fund for Commodities. And since then, we have translated this tool into different languages, and it will go further in the future. And this shows the websites where you can find this training tool. So it is a good way to educate both the operator of the galvanizing plant and also the manager about the different techniques and everything about the galvanizing plant, and also it provides for a check or an audit of the plant before and after the training tool is used, and this helps you to see if it is a useful tool and how to make further improvements. So this is just a list of the contents. It is following exactly the steps of general galvanizing to be sure the galvanizer operator and manager are trained in these different steps. For our Steel Foresight program, we are speaking with the steel industry and the researchers to see what are the trends for steel compositions in the future. How will these influence the processing of these steels to be sure that we have good mechanical properties and a good coating quality? We have in the past worked on the preparation of a guidance document on the steels that are available today, using steels that have been sourced from both Europe and the USA. And we show here one example of the European steels. This shows for the as-received hot-rolled steel, and then after welding, also after cold rolling 10%, or cold rolling more severely after 40%, because these are the kinds of steps that the fabricator is using, and then the work is coming to be galvanized. It can be welded, it can be deformed, cold deformed, and so we need to know what is the mechanical properties of these different steels. Three kinds of steels were used here: the 275 megapascal, 355 megapascal, and 460 megapascal strengths of steels. You can see in all cases the properties do change a little bit. There is a kind of a tempering or an increase in elongation and a lowering of strength in many cases when you are comparing the ungalvanized and the galvanized cold rolled steels. But this gives you a general idea what to expect when we are galvanizing these steels. We have a similar kind of table for the American steels to compare with the European steels, and the results are very similar. So this kind of guidance is now available to help us understand the response of the steel properties to galvanizing. But for the future, the steel industry is developing lower cost steels, less alloy elements in many cases, or the cheaper alloy elements, and we need to understand what needs to be done to galvanize these new steels. This Martensite start, which is a transformation term, is something we need to understand for these steels and how it will affect the galvanizability of the steels. Galvanized rebar is another topic. We have a global website, galvanizedrebar.com. There are now case studies for up to, I think the oldest one is 58 years. We see on this slide in Bermuda. This was built after the Second World War and is still giving a very good protection to this bridge. We also have decorative applications like this sundial in India near Sydney, and this must be looking very good with no corrosion, and they also have galvanized rebar. But we have many case studies around the world now for galvanized rebar. We think the breakthrough or the big possibility for the future will be continuous rebar coating. We have our first line in China running the zinc with 0.2% aluminum in the bath. This allows for the production of continuous galvanized rebar with a thin coating that is then epoxy coated. The same technology has been used to make 12% coatings. You can see the right side. This is the line in Australia. This is doing profiles. The continuous galvanizing of profiles is done also. So higher aluminum galvanizing with flux is now possible. There have been developments in the last few years. We also have the colored zinc. This is a current topic being developed in a European Union proposal, working together with European galvanizers and other companies in this. So we hope to have a lower cost solution for coloring zinc compared with paint, using a more reactive, thinner solution in this way. Looking at the different regions now, I'll just give you a little idea about what we do in each region, and perhaps this gives you some ideas. Perhaps some of these are interesting to think about for Brazil. I will not talk about Latin America, NAFTA, or Europe, because we have other speakers who will be speaking about these regions. In China, of course, we have many opportunities. Galvanized rebar, I mentioned, we have this new line. We see a very big possibility for rebar. In the general construction market, we work closely with the Chinese Steel Construction Society. We've done seminars with them to raise the awareness of galvanizers. We know that in the whole world, 75% of all large bridge projects are in China. And the big challenge for us in many times is to have the correct standards developed that use hot-dip galvanizing in steel construction in China. The railways are a huge construction project. We hear the publicity about the high-speed passenger railway lines, but the freight lines for the cargo are equally important. There are many freight lines for rail in China being developed. So these will be equally important for the consumption of galvanized steel. There are many galvanizers, of course, in China. This shows the different regions, the number of galvanizers, and trying to work with these has been a very important job for us to create the associations and to develop the demand with the specifying bodies. India also, we see rapid growth. You see the growth of zinc consumption on the left side and the growth of steel consumption on the right side, and that was a big part of the chart that I showed you earlier. We are responding to the state plan, the 5-year plan. They are investing very heavily in infrastructure. You can see the billions of dollars, US dollars, they are putting into the different sectors. There are many opportunities here for general galvanizing, and we are working together with the zinc producer and the associations to raise the possibilities for general galvanizing in India. And this just shows some of the examples which are very common to many parts of the world. Russia also, after its reorganization, we have seen the regrowth of the general galvanizing industry in Russia. We are now more than 55 general galvanizing plants. This only shows till 2009, but there has been further growth. There's about 55 general galvanizing plants in Russia. We are working with them on the norms to have the correct standards for public use, and also with public and private demand growth. And in the Asia Pacific, and by this we mean not China, not Japan, but in Southeast Asia, we do many seminars in different countries. These are very rapidly growing economies. There is a big potential for the growing of galvanized consumption in these countries. We have different tools. I mentioned the training tool. We have the galvanizingasia.com website and many other tools that show the new applications and the developments in these countries. In South Africa, this is a very interesting development for irrigation, for the pipe. We know that we have a big battle, a big fight with PVC plastic. However, in South Africa, they have come up with a tension coupling, which is compatible. It can be joined with PVC pipe. It is much stronger, so the installation of the pipe is very good, and it is a very economic way for pumping water because the pipe is thinner, so the inside diameter is larger the thick plastic compared with the thin steel allows for a larger inside diameter, so it's very efficient. So this is being gone further with the South African general galvanizing industry, and we think this can be used in many countries to give a good market for galvanized pipe. Turning now to some other uses, just a quick view. Here in Brazil and other countries, we are very active to support the development of zinc micronutrients in fertilizer for agriculture. You can see here an example in Turkey, in this case with a crop that shows the zinc being used in a strategic way. In China, we have shown a 20% increase in the growth of rice with zinc or no zinc added to the fertilizer of the crops. And this has been a nice increase and that has resulted in the recommendation by the Chinese State Minister of Agriculture to launch a program, and this will result in a big demand of zinc in China. We also see in Brazil a very big potential demand, and we have a man working here, João Moraes, is here with us today, and he is responsible for growing this new market in Brazil. So these have already had a good impact. We see an increase of zinc in fertilizer, which of course is helping the agricultural production. Zinc deficiency for people is a very important topic around the world. We have a third of the world's population that is deficient in zinc, and especially young children are especially at risk. And the big problem is diarrhea, the loss of fluid from the body. It is a much bigger public health problem than many others that we know about. So this problem can be solved with a zinc supplement, and this is what we are working together with UNICEF. So the UNICEF program, Zinc Saves Kids, you have a very low-cost way of doing this, and we know very well that this is working. So today in our expo you have also a Zinc Saves Kids booth. In Portuguese it's Zinc Salva Crianças, so you have a possibility of working with us on that. From the zinc industry, we have contributed $3 million with this UNICEF program over 3 years, and we certainly invite you to join in this effort, which is very worthwhile for helping these young children. Our focus these days is in Nepal and Peru. We have strong programs running in Peru. This is described on our website, which also we have in Portuguese. In Peru, we have made a very good effort. In the first year, the children show a good response to the zinc supplements. The anemia, which is a blood disease, has been reduced in the Peruvian study areas. So we eventually expect this to go to many other parts of the world. So this is some of the companies, for example, here in Brazil, showing the money that has been raised so far. So in summary, we see good growth in galvanizing. I've shown you the statistics for Brazil. We can see it's a strong growth. We have some areas of high potential, and we want to work with you to be sure that these can be realized. And we've seen that actually zinc is a good thing for solving some of the world problems in the fertilizer and the nutrition, together with its engineering uses. So we think there's a very good prospect for zinc. So I hope this overall view has been helpful to you, and we will now go to our first panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Nossos agradecimentos ao engenheiro Frank Goodwin. Muito obrigada.